Hello, and welcome to this talk on what it means for enterprises to be agent ready, but also why most still aren't. In this conversation, we're going to explore what it actually means to start working with AI agents at scale as an enterprise. We'll go through some of the technical parts, the infrastructure, the data, security, accountability, but also focus a lot on the people. Because in the end of the day, maybe the organizational shift is actually what makes all the difference here. My name is Emily Fogelstedt, and I'm an independent AI and innovation consultant. And with me today, I have Jonas Dahlberg, who is the head of growth at Redeploy. Welcome, Jonas.
Thank you. Really glad to be here.
So am I that you are here. So, all this talk about AI agents, what are they even?
AI agents is AI that can act. That's the easiest way to explain it. When an AI assistant, typically what you use, ChatGPT, Copilot, etc., you asked it to do something, write this text, summarize this. And what an agent can do is that it can automate a flow or a process, meaning it can not only read the email you get, it can summarize it, compare that to notes you have in the CRM, and automatically reply.
So I guess that's the difference, but because a year ago we were talking still about generative AI and these AI bots, but you're saying now that the AI agents, they can do more.
I tend to think of them as a colleague. It's basically, you can make an agent that scans through your documents of the day, summarizes the most important things you missed, and then next morning you get an email summarizing that. But you can also use it to automate business processes, and that's where it gets really interesting.
You sound so confident now, so I have to ask, are everyone already using these AI agents? Am I behind, or what is actually the state of the agentic AI shift?
Obviously, as always with these kind of things, there's a lot of talk and very little action. So in general terms, very few have done something significant. There are some that are doing real things, really addressing core processes, automating work, etc. But the difference between those that are leading and being part of this thing and the ones that are not is just increasing every day.
When it comes to AI agents and this whole agentic AI era that we're now entering into, how many companies have, all the organizations you meet at Redeploy, how many have actually started using this at scale?
Maybe 10, 15, 20% of our customers are really pursuing real agentic business processes. Say another 50% is thinking about it, and a couple have not started thinking about it yet.
And honestly speaking, is this just a buzzword? Are AI agents really as great as they look like they seem to be when you read all the headlines and the big tech CEOs talking about it? Or is this really as good as it sounds?
I think it's actually a lot better. It requires a different way of thinking. You need to move away from the AI assistant and think more like, if I had an extra colleague that worked in parallel with me and did its own things, what would I ask it to do? You can automate things using AI, and it's the reasoning that makes it all possible. Reasoning and memory, context, etc. So you can do pretty advanced thing. If you look at a developer these days using Claude Code, you can run a couple of agents in parallel. You are providing it with what you want the application to do. You then have an agent that creates the code. You have another agent that writes the test cases. You have a third agent that creates the user acceptance criteria. And then you have a fourth agent that orchestrates all of these and makes sure that whenever there's a change in the interface that you are prompting for, it changes a test case, acceptance case, and the way it's done. And then you can have a fifth agent that basically just makes sure it's pulled together at the end.
So you have a whole team of agents then working together with you.
Yes, and if you compare that to a common business process, let's say you're a claims handler at an insurance company, for example. You typically, you open up a claim, you look at the kind of text, what case is this? Do you know who this is? Is it a person, a long-time customer? You look for sign of frauds, obviously, these days. You check whether, the geo photography, for example, does it match the location that the person is? You do a number of basic checks. And then imagine all these manual steps that you do. Imagine that you had agents doing that instead. So basically, when you open the claims case, it is already checked. The geolocation, the case categorization is correct. We have included the most relevant pictures and removed the others. Probably a recommendation say maybe, we think it's a valid claim. We do, however, find a discrepancy that the actual license plate does not match the brand of the car. So it's probably fraud. And then you as a human start working. Interesting. I wonder why. And you can really start digging into it.
Which really means that you as a human can let go of a lot of those like manual administrative tasks that are just checking data, comparing things, and get straight into what you're really good at. Would it be okay, to make the comparison that generative AI and AI bots, they were more like the assistants, and when we talk about agents, we could actually more consider them our colleagues?
Definitely one model that works for me when I think about them, but then an AI assistant these days are pretty capable too. Meaning, it does remember who you are, it remembers what you have been telling it in the past. So it's a blurry thing, but when you start to automate business processes using agents, that is different from an AI supporting you when you're working.
Should all organizations start looking at agentic AI today?
I think you need to build AI proficiency from the ground up. I've been working as a consultant for a couple of months and helping customers, get started with AI. And one of the first thing I did was prompt trainings for leaders. C-level suite, how many have used it? Everyone raised their hand. How many actually knows how to use it? Very few hands. Still. And you need to learn, you need to understand how does it work, what are the limitations, because only then you can start thinking of, okay, but I'm in marketing. This is what I do. How can AI help me?
Does the whole agentic AI shift in an organization really require the leadership team to have high AI competence?
Yes, it has the potential to fundamentally change the way you operate. But then you as a leader also have to be able to actually do what is necessary to do. You need to get the right type of people in, give them the tools they need to get the work done. You need to be willing to change organizationally what you're doing. Maybe you shouldn't have 300 of this role. Maybe you should have 150 of them and 50 of these and 50 of these and 100 of them. You need to be ready to actually change how you operate. And that starts at the top.
Because AI isn't really something that just the IT department should be looking at. It's like a leadership decision.
Yes, it is. And it starts there. It starts at the leadership level, in terms of priorities. What do you want to address? What kind of business process would you like to change? And then start working with that. Then you need IT for all these basic things, security, infrastructure. There's a lot of stuff you need.
Of course.
But I still argue that that's easier than the actual implications when you start putting agentic systems into production.
Because it's not just about building like a good agentic platform. This is really about rethinking what value agentic AI could bring to the whole business model.
Yes, those companies that have come somewhere, they have started to really look into automating business processes. Not supporting processes necessarily, but trying to automate them. To fetch information, to summarize information, to relate that information to other data sources, etc. At the top end of these agentic stuff, you get some kind of recommendation for decision. So I still haven't seen a fully automated process where the agent actually makes the final decision. There's still very much human in the loop, and I think that it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that where you think we're heading to, like a future where the agents actually make the decisions? Yes.
Yes. We will have human oversight.
Yeah.
And that will eventually evolve into humans check the logs maybe once a week.
Yeah, I heard someone saying that instead of human in the loop, we have human over the loop.
Yes, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think the thing is, when we started working with generative AI, we couldn't trust these systems. You had like a 70%, something like 70% correctness. In some cases, it was like 10%, and in some cases 90%. But you couldn't trust them because there was so many errors. If you look at simple tasks these days, summarize text, read out the sentences of this type of document, check this image for counterfeit signs, all these kind of things, the precision is really high. And it kind of, in many ways, remove the reason to even question the result. And that is really dangerous. But it kind of means that we need to be over the loop, or at least check these systems for coherence, and that you don't get into problems like data drift, for example, where underlying data changes and then the agentic behavior changes, and you need someone to catch it.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that also depends on what kind of relationship you have with these agents. I know some people, you were saying that they're kind of like colleagues and so on, and then it's like they sound super confident, they say that they're going to do something, they say that they know, like, oh, this is the right decision, and then it turns out that, wait, no. But I mean, and we all know, like, from just talking with a normal chatbot like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, that sometimes they do make mistakes. And that's fine because we've learned to be a bit more like critical when we talk with them. But when it comes to making business critical decisions, I guess you can't have that like room for hallucinations and confident answers that turn out to be wrong.
Well, we do not demand 100% accuracy from humans. You don't fact check what I'm saying, for example. But if you would ask an AI the same question, you would fact check it. So I'm kind of questioning, is it reasonable to trust humans 100% and agents maybe only 96%? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that says something about like relationships in the future, I think. But I think it's fine. I mean, a lot of people are talking about us actually seeing these agents as colleagues or headcounts and teams and so on. But before we come into that, like the whole world is changing. I think that we're all kind of aware of the shift that's happening. But as you were saying in the beginning, we still have a lot of organizations that haven't really gotten that far yet. And of course, most have already started experimenting. They have AI pilots on the go and so on, maybe AI agentic pilots. But what does it actually take to go from a pilot into production to start working with this more at scale?
There are, of course, a number of technical things that you need in place. You need a proper data platform. You need a proper AI platform, somewhere to host it, monitor it, keep track of it, and to make sure you can get least privileged access, for example, so you don't get the agents running around and nosing in the wrong kind of data sets. So you need a couple of technical things in place, which is typically done by, an agentic AI landing zone or something like that, where you just put these guardrails, structures, policies, and monitoring, etc., in place. That's actually kind of the easy part. The difficult part is the organizational change. I think the main conclusion I've gotten last couple of months working with a number of different customers is that you need to address the things that are really hard.
What are the things that are really hard?
The really hard thing, although that really matters. If you're an insurance company, look at claims. If you're a bank, look at anti-money laundering or sanctions or PEP list, or, if you're a manufacturing, start looking into your manufacturing data, your core processes, whatever that is. what type of business case do you have to automate it, and then be ready to actually change things. But we also see many customers that doesn't necessarily look at cost as a key driver. They say, for example, we are looking at one big company that work with a lot of contracting on a global basis. They sell stuff in all over the world, and then they have delivery contacts on products and services. And it turns out that there's like, whenever a contract is proposed, there's like 2,800 something people involved all over the world constantly in reviewing these contracts. And, for a company that size, 3,000 people working, it's not a big issue. The issue is the time it takes for these people, the lag from the customer want to buy something and we create a contract. And when that contract is finally signed off, takes maybe 3 months. Probably not have much effect at all on the cost side. But on the revenue side, it'll be humongous. If you can get the average lead time from contract proposal to contract approval to a week instead of 3 months, that will make a big difference to their top line. This is what I mean with AI moving from personal assistants. Yes, we will have them.
Yeah.
And they have a really good value, and we're all going to use them.
Yep.
But the real difference is when you start building it specifically for your key business processes. And that's what we're seeing. But it requires some guts.
Yeah, no, guts, and also, knowledge, and even a whole new way of thinking. This whole agentic AI shift really requires a different type of mindset. As you're saying, maybe it's not just like entering a new function that's one thing. It's rethinking entire processes and how you actually operate.
Yeah, but and that's the, I think, really good point, because that's the other thing. Don't try to take your current process and make it agentic. Think of the outcome. What is the input and what is the outcome? And then think on how to make that on agentic.
We see the benefits. We understand that this is happening. I think that most C-level suits are also saying that, okay, we need to do something on agentic AI. But you were also saying in the beginning that most companies are probably not really there yet. So what is it that's actually blocking them from taking this step full out?
In many cases, it's the simple business models and the way you run the company. Who is responsible for the claims process, and what's their incentive to actually change it, for example?
Yeah, no, you're right. But in the beginning also you were saying that, okay, the technical part is probably the easy part, organizational change is the difficult part, but the technical part is of course also important, because without this foundation, the infrastructure, the right data and so on, nothing will really work either. So why is it important to ensure that these AI agents gain access to the right data, that it's structured the right way, that you have this whole infrastructure in place?
Once again, if we do the parallel with people, is that, at a company like Redeploy, for example, 100 plus people, a lot of consultants and managers, some leaders, some sellers. That's basically it. And then the managed service component, of course. But there are a number of different roles doing different things. Imagine to let in a highly capable, extremely smart person, and without any type of instruction. Could be a lot of innovation, but it could also be a lot of disruption.
Yep.
As long as you can keep track of what the agents access and you have some basic monitoring, then you are fairly safe for many use cases. But then when you have like business decisions at the end of it, like a claim or a credit rating or, whatever type of checks you do, you in many cases you're obliged by law to be able to reconstruct the decision tree. And then you need to produce basically this was the data, this was the agent, this was the instruction, this is the outcome, and this is where it went wrong.
Do you think then that identity and security are sometimes like overthought when it comes to this area? Is it something enterprises should be thinking about more?
From an agentic perspective, if the agent have an identity similar to a person or a user or whatever, you can track what it's doing. Basically, you can see what it accesses. You can set the access level security on different solutions. As long as the agent itself have an identity, you can use the type of security systems you already have, which is vitally important. As long as you stay within one ecosystem or one platform, it's quite easy. But it's become more difficult when you really want to deliver the user experience that the user wants.
What does it actually take to be agent ready? What is the minimum that needs to be in place for an organization?
Control of your data sets, basically a good data platform, solid one. You need an AI platform, basically an agentic landing zone where you can enforce security, compliance, etc. And then you need a proper business plan on what to do.
And probably, I guess, you should start smaller with like a set user case instead of trying to become agentic everywhere at the same time, or?
Exactly.
If a CIO is listening to this right now, what are questions that they should be asking themselves tomorrow to prepare for this shift?
I think the number one question is, where can this make the effect they want? Both top line and bottom line. Really start talking to their colleagues in the leadership team. Imagine AI that act on behalf of someone. If we were to deploy that, where in your business would it make the biggest difference? Both in terms of cost cutting, but also on the revenue side. And really, really listen to the answer. But you need to really understand, okay, this is like, you need to get the numbers. 80% of claims are easy. Address those.
Is there a single question you'd say that would immediately reveal if an organization is in fact agent ready or not?
No, it's not. I wouldn't say it's one question, but there's a couple of them. I think, do you have a complete agentic? Do you have an agent inventory? Do you know what agents are running? Do they have least privilege access? Do you know, can you reconstruct what they are doing? And if they stop working, what's your plan? Many of the CMOs I've spoken to the last couple of weeks, they when you bring up these questions, have you gotten them yet? They say no.
So I think also that a lot of boards are starting to realize that if agents are out there acting autonomously and they are performing tasks, they are maybe making decisions and so on, there are, of course, a lot of risks involved here. And maybe the CIOs and the teams are aware of this, maybe they aren't. But what do you actually answer the boards?
I think that the way you manage that is basically that you do some kind of risk tiering. And then you make sure that you have an agent inventory and you have a risk tiering on them. So you know that these three work in really critical processes. They do decisions or they don't do decisions themselves, for example. And you simply create a good model to describe it and then categorize every agent you have.
But when looking at risk assessment, if these AI agents actually make mistakes, if they make the wrong decisions...
If you have an agent in marketing, for example, doing copy or writing articles, etc., obviously the CMO is still accountable for what the agents and the AI is actually producing, which means that it'll take some time before we go to complete agentic decisioning. I think there will be a human in the loop for a long time still, I think.
And if these mistakes start happening, maybe also the mistakes start scaling because other agents catch on and so on. And how many companies, if the boards ask, actually have like the ability to just press stop, to have a rollback plan and make sure that, okay, we can keep on operating as before or as normal?
Yeah, I think very, very few have agents in production.
Yeah.
Which means very few have even thought of the need to be able to have a fallback plan on what they do. But I mean, similar to the kind of discussions you have around sovereign cloud these days, and the risk on US, EU, Europe, US, Asia, etc. You need similar contingency plans, obviously, for your agentic infrastructure as well.
Yeah.
What do? Can you put key things on-prem, worst case? Can you automate it? Can you rely on multiple vendors for delivery, safety, etc.?
Yeah.
There's a number of questions that needs to be answered over time.
For the organizations that are actually already starting to move forward, that are deploying these agents and are making process with it, what are they actually doing differently?
What they are doing differently is that they are addressing real business process problems. The problems of consistency in background checks. For example, if you have humans checking data, reading through documents, they do that hour after hour after hour. At the end of the day, you will see a significant degradation in performance. They will miss things. If you can get the AI to do that, then you can use what we are really good at, spotting anomalies, the gut feeling, these kind of things that being human, for example, we are still better at being human. So
That's comforting.
yeah, it is. Still for a
Yeah.
while. We'll see how long
Yeah.
how long that stays true, but still.
Do you think it's realistic for an enterprise to become agentic ready in 6 months, or is this like a multi-year process that you need to go through?
If you get some basic things in place, you can basically say you are agentic ready. And then if you get the follow-up questions, what agents do you have? How do they perform? How do you monitor them? Blah, blah, blah. All the questions
Yeah.
and you can answer them. Well, I guess you're agent ready then. What's the value we're getting out of it? What is it actually changing? Is it cost, top line, bottom line, customer satisfaction? What is it actually impacting that from a business perspective is important?
So if you are a CIO or a CEO and you're sitting there, you have these like stalled AI initiatives behind you. Some of them might not have performed the way you were hoping for. What should you actually be doing right now? Give up? Or I mean, how do you push forward to really reach this stage?
I think there's a lot of talk around these AI pilots, etc., that failed. But
Yeah.
this is a new tool set, and organizations need to learn it. You need to build the skills. You need a certain level of AI efficiency in the leadership teams, for example. And unless you did these pilots and did these tests, you wouldn't have learned what worked or not. Don't look at it as a failure. Look at it as a learning experience that did cost money. But still, I think it's useful. And if you now take that learning on what works, the state of your data, etc., and you start asking the right questions to the right people, what can we actually change in your part of the business? And you get the reply. You can apply these learnings from the failed pilots into doing something real and really make a difference. So I think that's important to kind of rethink. Whenever you learn something, it should be considered a success.
No, and I guess you're right. It's like what you say within innovation, that fail fast, but always fail forward.
Exactly.
And for someone listening to this now, what do you want them to take with them from this conversation?
I think the AI agents will make a huge difference, but you need to early on think on where to apply them and relentlessly pursue that.
Makes sense. Thank you so much, Jonas, for sharing all these thoughts today.
Thank you.